Despite the fact that the Iron Curtain that once separated Europe has been gone for a very long time, the continent is still divided by the wide differences in public issues that exist today. People in Western Europe still consider those in Eastern Europe as new Europeans, which makes it sound like they haven't fully become European. In today's video, we're going into the complicated world of geopolitics, where we'll be focusing on the relationship between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. Does Western Europe really want to dominate Eastern Europe? Let's dive right in and find out. Did you know that Western Europe totally dominated Europe from the medieval era all the way up to the 20th century? They became the big shots in terms of culture, politics, and the economy of the continent. This dominance we're talking about was influenced by a few things. This dominance was influenced by factors such as the rise of the Roman Empire, the development of feudalism, and the expansion of maritime trade. Then came the Cold War, which was a highly divisive period in the relationship between Western and Eastern Europe. Europe was divided into two ideological blocs, the capitalist West and the communist East. This caused a lot of political and economic rivalries between the two. Eastern European countries under Soviet control went through really tough times. They had to deal with a lot of political repression and economic limitations. But when the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, it meant that this separation was over for good, and there was hope for a united Europe. However, the process of merging has not been easy. It was believed that the European Union's growth to the east would help bring the continent together, but it also revealed conflicts that were already there. Some countries in Eastern Europe felt like they were treated like junior partners, which made people wonder what the real relationship between East and West is like in the EU. The addition of East European countries to the EU has changed a lot more than just the way politics work in the West. By 2013, almost every second EU member state could be called East European. However, only about 15% of the EU's population lives in these newer countries. There are big differences in income and social class between the Western and Eastern halves, and the Eastern half's economic share has stayed well below 1/5. The addition of East European states has had a huge impact on both the European budget and the functioning of a large, borderless European zone. In the meantime, the newer member states have gained a lot of political power without giving their people nearly equal representation in the EU's elite. Also, while people in West Europe thought that the addition of 11 East European states would not change much, those countries were hoping for a huge change that would help them get out of their semi-peripheral position. Now, it's fair to say that a lot more has changed since 2004 than either side expected or even wanted. As a result, both sides are pretty unhappy with how their relationship has changed. Expectations that were not met by both sides, imbalances in the Union's institutions, and heated debates about important ideas like Europe and the West have all made things worse. In the past few years, they've made the gap between East and West seem even bigger. People in East Europe now say that they'll protect Europe and the West in a non-normative, culturalist, nostalgic way, which is one reason why the Union feels more and more divided. This has made it look like the Western European countries want to dominate the Eastern ones. Western European countries, which are often called economic powerhouses, have been very important in shaping the EU's economic policies and making decisions. Western European countries now feel like they're economically united thanks to the Eurozone and the use of the euro as a shared currency. However, the road to economic convergence has not been uniform. Countries in Eastern Europe, which used to be a part of the communist group, embarked on a challenging journey toward economic freedom and joining the EU. Now, there are still differences in economic growth, even though there has been progress. But this has led to arguments about whether EU economic strategies are fair. There's no question that the economic relationship is complicated. With their strong economies, Western European countries have played a big role in creating EU policies. But as the EU grew to include more of the East, it became harder to close the economic gap between the more developed West and the East that was still changing. Now, this has led people to conclude that Western Europe was creating the policies to dominate Eastern Europe. The differences can be seen in many areas, such as income levels, the development of infrastructure, and the availability of chances. Some countries in Eastern Europe think that the way decisions are made favors Western countries with better economies. Getting rid of these differences is important, making the EU feel more fair. Now it's believed that the Western European countries, and Germany in particular, have utilized their economic and political might to exert influence over the economy of Eastern European countries and the decision-making processes in those Eastern European countries. This is because German companies have huge investments in Eastern Europe, mostly in manufacturing and car production. Some Eastern European countries are also worried about what they see as unfair differences in how the EU makes decisions and distributes funds. They say that their voices aren't being heard enough and that EU policies don't properly represent their interests. There are political differences between Western and Eastern European countries about things like immigration, social policy, and the rule of law, which has made these worries worse. Some leaders in Western Europe have said that some governments in Eastern Europe are breaking democracy rules and human rights. Now, before I go on, are you finding this content valuable? If so, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on our upcoming videos. Also, click on that share button to share this video with your friends. Great. Now let's continue. The alliances that countries make and the security concerns that drive these relationships often shape the geopolitical scene. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, better known as NATO, was originally established during the Cold War to counter the Soviet threat. But after the Cold War, NATO grew by adding countries that used to be part of the Eastern Bloc. This growth not only changed the balance of power in the world, but it also made people wonder what the alliance's real goals of NATO were. Some countries in Eastern Europe saw NATO's growth as a way to protect themselves from possible threats. But some Eastern European countries, most especially Russia, are worried about how close NATO was to their borders, which caused geopolitical problems. The way Western and Eastern European countries in the alliance interact with each other has been affected by this change. This is one of the major reasons of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is one of the countries that gained independence from the Soviet Union and shares a border with Russia. Recently, Ukraine had admitted to wanting to join NATO for security reasons. However, Russia doesn't want NATO close to its borders because of security risks. This led Russia to invading Ukraine. Concerns about security have a big impact on how partnerships and cooperation work. NATO wants to keep everyone safe, but member states may not be as committed to the group when they see different threats. The expansion of NATO into Eastern Europe has been believed to be part of Western Europe's plan to dominate Eastern Europe. However, to keep the region stable, it's important to find the balance between addressing security concerns and encouraging people to work together. To stop the allegations of Western Europe dominance, what can Western and Eastern Europe do to build a relationship based on respect, cooperation, and economic growth for both? To close any gaps that may exist between Western and Eastern European countries, it's essential to support programs that encourage discussion and understanding. The connection is complicated because of past mistakes, uneven economies, cultural differences, and worries about safety. It's very important to support economic policies that include everyone and put the growth of Eastern European countries first. This could include targeted spending in areas like education, infrastructure, and new ideas, which would help make the EU's economy more stable. Also, a broad and clear method is needed to balance security concerns with working together. A more stable geopolitical environment can be reached by letting NATO members talk to each other openly, recognizing each country's security needs, and fostering trust through joint drills. Now, there are many sides to the bond between Western and Eastern Europe. Even though there are still problems with security, economic imbalances, cultural divides, and the effects of the past, there's hope for a future based on understanding and working together. So, do you think the Western Europe bloc is trying to dominate the Eastern Europe bloc? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for joining us on this insightful journey into the dynamics of East-West relations. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious.